And good evening. We are doing it live right here, 790 KBC in the 5 o'clock hour. Mottek On Money 5 nights a week for you on the air right here in 790, streaming live online worldwide at KBC.com and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, KBC.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms. And yeah, on the socials too, Frank Mottek on X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. Well, happy Hanukkah, first night of Hanukkah tonight, and we wish all our listeners a wonderful holiday season. Stocks did finish higher today as traders hoped the jobs report that's due out tomorrow morning continue to show easing in the labor market. The big enchilada of monthly economic reports, the monthly jobs report we get from the Labor Department, out first thing tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. Investors also cheering the launch today of Alphabet's latest AI model. Optimism growing around a tech-driven market rally as we approach the end of the year. Alphabet among the stocks gaining about 5% today. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 63 points, snapping a three-day losing streak. The S&P 500 moved of 36, and the NASDAQ popped nearly 200 points. After rising for 5 straight weeks now, the S&P 500 and Dow appear to be set to finish the week lower, barring any big move on the upside tomorrow. The NASDAQ is up slightly this week so far. Taking a look at some of the readings out today, the weekly jobless claims report we got today showed the number of people in unemployment lines barely changed at 220,000. Taking a look at JetBlue, among the airlines surging today at 15% after the airline raised guidance for the fourth quarter and full year, saying travel demand remains healthy this holiday season. Bitcoin is back, hovering above $44,000 today. We'll be talking Bitcoin and the whole crypto space shortly with John NAJARIAN. He'll be joining us in just a moment. Also, Jason Nelson from Decrypt Media will be joining us live later this hour for extended coverage on the cryptos, which are seeing quite a rally lately. Discussions between the U.S. security regulators and asset managers hoping to list Bitcoin exchange-traded funds have advanced to key technical details and a sign the agency might soon approve the products, according to industry executives talking to Reuters. That's just coming over the wires just now. Bitcoin, by the way, up about 80% since mid-September, a rally that saw it take out the 30,000 and 40,000 levels in quick succession, and now hovering around 44,000. We'll also discuss what's happening in Washington with your money with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. He'll be joining us live later this hour as well. But right now, first on your money, the markets, the economy, gold, Bitcoin, and the whole works tonight. With us live is John NAJARIAN. Dr. J, as he's known on the major networks, co-founder of Market Rebellion, and has the laser eyes on, too, following the cryptos very closely. John NAJARIAN, thank you very much for taking the call. And boy, since we were on last week, Bitcoin has rallied even more over the past week, above 44,000 today. Let's get to the exciting stuff here and give us your thoughts about what's happening in the crypto space here at the moment.
Well, it's pretty much a polar opposite of last year at this time, Frank. When you and I were talking then, in the wake of the failure of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried ultimately turning himself in, the Bitcoin contract traded below 18,000. And as you accurately stated just moments ago, it is flirting now with 44,000. It's presently taking a breather, I guess I'll call it, at 43,304. But boy, that's a far cry from that sub 18,000 level that we spoke of. So fantastic move out of that and a number of other cryptocurrencies, Solana and even FTX's old coin itself have done phenomenally in the last several weeks.
That's amazing. And a lot of buzz about ETFs in the crypto world. Is that what is fueling this rally, or is there something more going on here? We got that breaking news here from Reuters saying discussions between securities regulators and asset managers hoping to list Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ETFs, have advanced to key technical details. I know there's been a lot of excitement about that, but what is fueling this big rally here?
Well, certainly a lot of it has to be on the what has happened with basically the potential for this, because that's all it still is. I'm cautioning listeners, potential for a spot Bitcoin future. But it seems more and more likely with a number of crypto exchanges and brokers, including Robinhood, that are saying, look, if the United States doesn't do this, we're going overseas. We're going to give our investors opportunities to invest in crypto through overseas exchanges, since the U.S. hasn't had the guts to approve a crypto ETF or basically make it easier to trade crypto. And I applaud them for that. Hood, that is, Hood. I applaud them for that. And, Gary Gensler, I am no fan of this guy. He's a complete poser. And when he was at MIT, he taught and allegedly was instructing young minds about the ins and outs of digital currencies, but has never traded them. And to me, that makes him a poser. And he's done nothing but be an impediment against people that would like to be able to invest and trade in crypto. So if his idea is that I'm going to force all this trade to go overseas, he will go down as the worst commissioner in the history of the SEC.
On there live with John NAJARIAN, Dr. J, on the major financial networks, and it's so great to have you here with the rally in cryptos here, and right from the start, you've had your eye on all of this, and look, some of those altcoin, Doge, for example, nearly 10 cents here, was hovering around 6 cents almost the whole year, and that's made a big move here. Anything else? And what about good old Shiba Inu, the one that popped a couple years ago and turned people into billionaires? Anything else that's getting your attention these days?
Well, I mean, obviously we all followed, all of us in the crypto space followed what went on with Binance, with the founder and CEO turning himself in, paying a huge fine and so forth. But would you believe that was up today as well? BNB is, of course, the symbol for that token or coin. And the Binance token's $232.69 right now. That's a pretty robust price for something that faced the issues that they faced, again, with their founder and CEO and so forth. But it is up from an October low of 205 up here to 232. So that's a pretty nice move. And I think many in the crypto space are heartened by what they see from people continuing to believe in the cryptos. And one of the main reasons is, of course, as they stated years ago in Satoshi's treatise on currencies in general, he wanted something that would, or he or they, whatever it might be. Satoshi's white paper was all about creating something that would not be subject to just mass overprinting of a currency, which he loathed in the United States and elsewhere where they're able to do it. And so I think that what we're seeing right now is people once again believing, just as they did in Argentina this past month, that maybe there is a better way than some of these central bankers trying to manage everything, and printing that has gone on in Argentina has obviously severely held that country and currency back. So perhaps there is a better way, and many of these cryptos want to be that better way.
On your live with John NAJARIAN, and of course on this program we have the biggest fans of crypto as well as the harshest critics. We did hear from J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon this week. He testified before Capitol Hill telling Congress he would close down Bitcoin and crypto. He's trying to talk crypto down here at this critical moment. How do you respond to the critics, the disbelievers in crypto at this point?
Well, it is a buyer beware situation where if you buy into it, don't buy into the days of hype when Bitcoin, surges $2,000 or $3,000. Be a patient buyer. Those of us who did that, you included, I hope, Frank, have enjoyed the ride here. From beneath 20,000, certainly even beneath 18,000 to 44,000, makes it one of the top performing big cap stocks on the available to all of us to invest in. It's not $3 trillion like Apple. It's not a couple trillion like Microsoft and some of the other giants, but it's an $850 billion market cap in Bitcoin. So I think a lot of times Jamie likes to hear himself talk, likes to see himself quoted. I think he's a brilliant guy, but I think that part of it is he's probably trying to protect some of his investors that really don't put in the time to understand what crypto is and how it trades and how you store it and so forth. But I think it would be a mistake for any of us to think that crypto is going to go away because of what Jamie Dimon says.
All right. What about the application of crypto? Of course, everyone was excited about the internet initially, and people, Google themselves or Netscape themselves, whatever we did back then, and it was fun. And what about the actual practical uses of the cryptocurrencies at this point? Is there more adoption based on all these prospectuses out there with all these various tokens that we're reading? It seems like there would be a million uses, but what about practical uses for crypto now?
Well, I'm not the best one to speak to about practical uses of it, but what I will say is things like Solana, which were decimated over the past year. Solana, for instance, just in early October, like I'm looking at a date here, October 11th, it was $21.50. That token, SOL, is $69 as we're speaking right now. If you can find me lots of tokens or lots of stock investments or commodity investments that I can be an investor in and enjoy a 3x return, I'll be all over it, Frank.
Right.
But quite frankly, a lot of these cryptos are providing that kind of return for investors. And again, just don't chase it on the hype. Learn about it a little bit. Perhaps invest here and there in a couple of these different cryptos. But, my favorite is still Bitcoin. I have probably 80% Bitcoin, 10% Ethereum, and then a smattering of some of the other tokens like FTT, which is the former, FTX token, or SOL, which is Solana. And there are a host of others that people could buy, but I try to concentrate basically on 4 or 5 of them, and I never even trade Bitcoin anymore. I just hold it.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great education for our listeners here tonight as Bitcoin is back, and certainly that seems to be where the action is here at the moment, and we're doing extended coverage on the cryptos here tonight. And, of course, the market has seen a pretty decent rally as well. We did snap a 3-day losing streak this week for the major stock market averages, but we got the big jobs report out first thing tomorrow morning. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow, and what do you see ahead for this market?
Well, as I think you and I have discussed, in fact, in recent weeks, it's been at 99%. That is the likelihood that the Fed will stay on the pause. Not that they will cut, but they will stay on the pause that they've been on now for 3 cycles, and they'll make it 4 this time around.
Stacking Benjamins with Joe and his good friend OG not only has great financial insight, it's laid back with humor too.
Joe talks with Stacking Deeds co-host Crystal Hammond.
I've always been a fan of nosy neighbors. I want nosy neighbors. They can tell you what's going on 10 times faster than you would know.
Again, what's she talking about, Doug?
Really?
We're repairing neighborhoods, but then we're into nosy neighbors, and I built a career off of that.
Find out more by searching the Stacking Benjamins podcast, wherever you listen.
Under 30, choosing health insurance for the first time, there's a lot to figure out. HMOs, PPOs, HSAs, copays. And if you actually need care, how do you even know it's covered? Well, don't worry, because Kaiser Permanente's got you covered. With straightforward answers about health plan options, information on choosing a doctor, understanding deductibles, and more. It can be a lot, but Kaiser Permanente has answers. Check out kp.org/BetterHealthMAS to get it all figured out. That's kp.org/BetterHealthMAS.
Right now, the 10-year bond going into tomorrow's jobs report is 4.12%, and that's with no cuts at all, just pausing. And meanwhile, the future was over 5%. just 3.5, well, probably 5 weeks ago now, was over 5%. So we've come down dramatically, even though we have not seen a cut. We've only seen pauses. So the investors, and I'd say institutional investors are the ones that drive the 10-year, are basically voting with their feet. And they are basically buying the 10-year bond, which means price up, yield down. And the yields are down 90 basis points or more from the recent high just 5 weeks ago. So I think you've seen mortgage rates approaching 7% after, that jump towards 8%. And that's another positive sign for the markets. So am I surprised that November being as strong as it was in reaction to what was going on in the interest rate picture? No, I'm not. And today, again, the QQQ or the NASDAQ was seeing just massive money flows in again, despite the fact that the Dow Jones and the S&Ps weren't seeing quite the same jump. NASDAQ futures were really responding, and I suspect a lot of it, Frank, is because lower interest rates with a lot of cash and borrowing that they'd like to do again will be continued strength for the NASDAQ in the as we watch to see whether or not we can even break 4 in the early part of January, as far as what the Fed may or may not say December 13th when they have their last meeting of 2023.
All right, AI was a big story this year, and we see Google rallying today after the company announced its latest AI model called Gemini. Optimism growing about a tech-driven market rally into the end of this year. Have you had a chance to look at this? And what about the AI names here in this one in particular?
First of all, I'm not surprised that they've gone with a different name. Bard, their first one, had sort of flamed out in its opening, but they stuck with it for months and months, and now they're really focused on Gemini, as you say. And AMD had similarly positive things to say about its artificial intelligence movement. I think the AI stock that you spoke of that today was down rather hard, AI itself is, obviously something that's going to be with us and hopefully benefiting investors that choose to invest there, as well as businesses that choose to rely upon it. But an 11% drop today took it to about $26. The 52-week low is $10 and the high is $49. So, we're double the low at that $10 mark, even a little bit more than that because we're 26. So we're 2.5 times above that mark. And I think overall AI is here to stay, Frank, and we're going to hear more and more positive things rather than negative things about AI-related stocks.
One thing that's come as a surprise, certainly the price of oil has tanked recently, back into the 60s, below $70 a barrel, below where it was following the terror attack on Israel back on October 7th. The war in the Middle East continues, and yet we're seeing oil prices ease. And in the meantime, this is important, crude imports by China seeing a monthly fall of 10% in November to a 4-month low. The economy of China has also been in focus lately as weakening. And what do you see ahead for oil prices here as we head into the new year?
Well, I would put myself in the camp of people that say when it gets cheaper, as it has, I tend to be more interested in buying here at this $70 level. Could we see mid-60s out of this or even low 60s? I suppose so. But I think, give yourself a few months, and if you're a commodity trader, I think you're likely to see 80s again in the not-too-distant future. But the OPEC Plus was just over a week ago, Frank, and at that OPEC Plus meeting, November 30th, they basically said, hey, we're going to take out another 1.3 million barrels per day. And by the way, Saudi and Russia are cutting voluntarily in addition to that. So I got to believe that we're going to see a bounce out of crude oil here in the final few weeks of the year. And like I say, I'd be a buyer in the below 70 range for sure.
Well, John, it's always great to have you with us. Thank you very much for taking the call here tonight as we follow crypto, especially these days with what's happening with that big rally and everything else. So we'll be looking for you on the major networks and on Twitter, of course, at John NAJARIAN, on X, I should say, formerly known as Twitter, John NAJARIAN. Thank you very much. We wish you a beautiful holiday season, you and your family, John, and look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Likewise, Frank. Thank you very much. Have a great first day of Hanukkah, everyone.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. That is John NAJARIAN, co-founder of Market Rebellion, and also, of course, the Laser Eyes on 2 following the cryptos. As we just heard, we'll continue our extended coverage on the latest crypto rally. Jason Nelson from Decrypt Media will be joining me live later this hour. Folks, people like you and me have our ear to the ground in all things business. We like to be informed and well prepared. As important as finance is, I want you to have a plan in case you're hit by someone not paying attention to the road. Thinking ahead serves us well, and even still, we can get caught off guard as people are so focused on their destination that they might not have a plan if they're in an accident that's not your fault. That's why I encourage you to put my friend Attorney Clark Fielding's number in your phone. That number is 833-88-SHARK. So if you're in an accident, you'll be ready with your strategy to make Clark Fielding your very first call. Fielding Law aims for the highest possible settlements, considering you might need long-term care, rehab, compensation for lost wages, and any ongoing physical or emotional pain. So if you're hurt in any kind of accident, call for a free consultation with Fielding Law. You can trust them. They're honest, respected, and your strategy in case you get into that unexpected accident. Motorcycle, truck, pedestrian, scooter, hit and run, boating, or bike accidents, you name it, call 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. 90 KBC welcomes, you guessed it, Peter Frampton coming to the Greek Theater April 13th. Tickets are on sale tomorrow at Ticketmaster.com. And right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-790-5222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller 9. Call right now, 1-888-790-5222. Baby, don't wait. I love your way every day. Peter Frampton coming to the Greek Theater April 13th. Well, we have a winner on Wall Street today, snapping a 3-day losing streak. The Dow up 63 points. We're back to 36,117. The S&P 500 up 36 at 4,586. And the NASDAQ gained 193 at 14,340. The yield in the 10-year note is eased to 4.17%. Tomorrow's the big day for the jobs report from the Labor Department. The price of gold, which hit a record high in the last week, pulling back right now at $2,047.30, up 90 cents here at the moment. The price of oil down for the 6th day in a row, down to around 69 and change. In the crypto world, which we'll be talking more about shortly, we see a Bitcoin right now hovering at about 43,357, Ethereum at 2,355, and Doge at 9.5 cents. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Have you noticed things are getting more expensive? In fact, somebody got out the calculator and has determined that the typical American household would need an extra $11,434,000 to maintain the same standard of living they enjoyed in January of 2021. This according to a recent analysis by Republican members of the U.S. Senate Joint Economic Committee, as reported by CBS News. Republican lawmakers and others calling out President Biden and his administration while reacting to that report, pointing to the president's economic policies and his Bidenomics message. Let's bring in an expert on all of this and more, one of the leading, if not...
Welcome to Talkville, the ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast. Title Crisis aired March 3rd, 2004. Director Kenneth Biller. He was a weird guy. He was talented and I liked him, but he was a weird fella.
The production loved him. The cast, Ken, if you're out there, I'm sure we get along.
A lot of these people, I don't want to call them pawns, but in a TV production, even directors are a lot of times pawns.
Jump in now or catch up on any of the past seasons of Talkville on YouTube or wherever you listen.
The leading taxpayer advocate in the United States, Grover Norquist, joining us live now from Washington, president of Americans for Tax Reform, keeping track of everything happening in Washington. Grover Norquist, thank you very much for coming to the line here, and give us your reaction to the report that I just read.
Well, sadly, it's correct. You've had inflation reduce the value of every dollar in your wallet, every dollar in your life savings in your bank account by about 17%. And yet the average wage has gone up since Biden got elected by 13.5%. So the average American is poorer today, has a lower income today than they did the day that Biden was elected. And because of Biden's spending programs and regulatory programs. It's not just something that happened because some meteor hit the United States. It's because of Biden's program. So people are poorer than they would have been if Biden had not been elected, poorer than they were when Biden was elected. And he's telling us we should be excited and happy about his programs.
On there live with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, and certainly what you just described is a huge tax on everyday Americans struggling to maintain a standard of living they saw a couple of years ago, but things are getting quite expensive. And certainly on the tax front, you're the expert here as well, tracking what's happening in Washington. I see they're talking about a big defense bill here now, aid for Ukraine, and obviously important aid for Israel, all being discussed. Give us an update on how our money's being spent there now.
Sure. Biden has some requests. He wants to spend money on Israel, on Ukraine, on Taiwan, and there's a lot of Republican support for some of those issues. But he's not willing to reform his position on the border and have some sort of control over immigration. And that's what's holding it up. He has allowed a whole bunch of people to come into the country, say hello, but then walk away from ever showing up to talk to a court. And he's basically refusing to take border security seriously. And for that, he may lose the Ukraine and Israel and other financial support. So it's neck and neck right now.
All right, I'm reading from Reuters here, coming across the wires after a failed test vote, prospects dim for new Ukraine aid in the U.S. Congress. So where do things stand with that, and where do things stand for aid to Israel?
This is all up to the president. The Republicans have said we'll cheerfully vote for the aid to Ukraine, the aid to Israel, the aid to Taiwan, but we need some reform on the border and how we deal with these issues. And the president doesn't care, doesn't want to do it. And I think at the end of the day, there are a handful of Democrats who say we should have some reasonable reform from the mistakes of the Biden administration on the border and on immigration. So at the end of the day, I think we will get some reform on the border and the spending that the president has asked for on foreign military aid there. But the president is not being presidential.
All right. What about Hunter Biden? I see the Republican chairman of two of the House committees leading the impeachment inquiry now into President Biden, threatening to hold the president's son in contempt of Congress if he fails to appear before a deposition of the Capitol on December 13th. What's the latest on that?
Well, it certainly looks as if Hunter Biden did get money from China, did give it to his father. His father did know what was happening. All of this was going on before he was, much of a reporter as president. The sort of thing that normally you'd think the Democrats would vet a candidate before they run him for president, that it has been kept secret this long is pretty impressive. It doesn't speak well for the United States government. Or for
Rob, we're going to interrupt you here. We got some breaking news here. Hunter Biden indicted on 9 tax charges here in California today as a special counsel investigation into the business dealings of the president's son intensifies against the backdrop of the looming 2024 election. The latest Wire report here says the new charges, 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors, come in addition to federal firearms charges in Delaware, alleging Hunter Biden broke a law against drug users having guns in 2018. This is the news here. Hunter Biden indicted on 9 tax charges, adding to gun charges and the special counsel's investigation. Want to get your reaction to that?
Well, President Biden says people who don't want to pay more in taxes are unpatriotic. So he needs to have a talk with his son.
There you go. Anything else on the radar there? We saw the former House Speaker resigning from Congress. That's certainly big news. What are your thoughts on that happening, and also how the new Speaker is doing so far?
Well, the new Speaker is getting a little more support from people who are cutting him some slack for the same policies that McCarthy had. Because, look, if you don't have a majority in the Senate, you don't have the White House, there's a limit to what you can do. And I think Republicans in the House get that. And they're making some steps forward. The big news is the court case, the Supreme Court case, which they strike down the Democrats' desire to have a wealth tax or a tax on income that hasn't been realized, right? Right now, the federal government says you can tax income. But what the Democrats want to do is tax the increase in your 401k, your individual retirement account, your pension funds. Whenever the value of stocks go up, they want to take that money away from you then, which means, of course, sometimes stocks go up and then they go back down again, and you'd be paying taxes on money you never saw. The Supreme Court should rule, because the Constitution is very clear, you haven't earned it. If you haven't gotten the cash, it's not income. You don't pay taxes on it. But the Democrats really want to tax property. They want to tax the value of your 401k. They want to tax the value of your house, the value of a small business, the value of investments. They need that money for their programs. And the Supreme Court, I think, will say that's not constitutional.
Grover, thank you very much for giving us the update here tonight from Washington live. That is Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, we wish you and everyone there a wonderful holiday season, and thank you very much for taking the call here tonight.
You too.
Thank you very much. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC, repeating the breaking news. The Department of Justice today filing new criminal charges against President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, accusing him of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes while spending millions of dollars on a lavish lifestyle. Biden was hit with 3 felony and 6 misdemeanor tax offenses, according to an indictment filed in U.S. District Court in Central California. He faces up to 17 years in prison if convicted on those charges. The Justice Department said its investigation into Hunter Biden is ongoing. The statement says the defendant engaged in a 4-year scheme to not pay at least $1.4 million in self-assessed federal taxes he owed for tax years 2016 through 2019, according to the indictment. It added that Hunter Biden had spent millions of dollars on an extravagant lifestyle rather than paying his tax bills. A spokesperson for special counsel David Weiss and an attorney for Hunter Biden did not immediately reply for requests for comment. Reuters reporting Hunter Biden in October pleaded not guilty to charges that he lied about his drug use while buying a handgun in the first criminal prosecution of a sitting U.S. president's child. Weiss brought those charges against Hunter Biden after an earlier proposed plea deal unraveled under questioning from a federal judge. Weiss is still investigating whether the younger Biden can be charged for tax law violations. Again, to repeat, the Department of Justice today filing new criminal charges against the president's son, Hunter Biden, accusing him of failing to pay about $1.5 million in taxes while spending millions on a lavish lifestyle. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. We're following the rally in the cryptos this year. Big difference from what we saw last year when we had that crypto winter or even ice age. Bitcoin has rallied big. In fact, right now hovering at around $43,000. Got up around $44,000 earlier. Let's bring in Jason Nelson, reporter with Decrypt Media. Jason, great to reconnect with you here. It's been a while since we chatted behind the live microphones. I think we were still in that winter when we last spoke, that crypto winter or ice age. Things have changed quite a bit. Give us your assessment of this big rally we've seen.
Hey, Frank. Before I do that, happy holidays, everybody.
Likewise.
What we're seeing is just the market is pumping right now, and as with most things, when tide rises all ships, so you're seeing Bitcoin rising, you're seeing Ethereum rising. It's just across the market. With Bitcoin specifically, you're also seeing a lot of additional traction in ordinals and inscriptions and things like that are a part of the Bitcoin network, which could also be a factor in the rise we're seeing right now.
All right, a lot of buzz about crypto ETFs. What about that, including the latest report that said there's some discussions as recently as today about this with the regulators and expectations that's going to happen? Is that a big part of what's fueled this big rally?
Oh, definitely. ETFs have been on everyone's mind since the SEC was basically told you can't block Bitcoin ETFs just because you want to. And I think that has encouraged a lot of investors that this could be something that's happening not any day now, but soon. And that's definitely something that is adding to this rally that you're seeing right now.
All right. It should be noted Bitcoin's still well off its all-time high, which was, around 69,000 a couple of years ago, right? Right now we're at, 43,357 or so. You followed this very, very closely. What are the crypto analysts saying on where Bitcoin goes from here?
Well, when Bitcoin's rallying, you're going to start hearing things like it's going to be $100,000 soon, and you don't follow that. That's speculation, and especially speculation in the community. It's definitely a positive sign that Bitcoin is going up this high this quickly. But like you just said, it's nowhere near where it was at its all-time high, which was about almost $70,000 at one point.
Right. In all this, as I just discussed with John NAJARIAN, who's got the laser eyes on as well, we see Jamie Dimon, the head of the nation's largest bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, kind of trying to pull the rug out from under this rally, saying that if he was in charge, he wouldn't allow crypto. What about that? It still has its very harsh critics as well as its biggest fans.
Well, Dimon has never been a fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He's said a lot of disparaging things about the technology and its use as a currency. So it's not surprising that he would make this statement, but the community doesn't really care what he thinks to begin with, so it's not really going to have an effect on them.
All right, you follow Bitcoin as well as the other coins. Ethereum certainly has rallied. Even Doge is up around 9.5 cents here at last check. What are some of the coins or tokens that are getting your attention, and what is the biggest buzz right now in the crypto world?
Well, it's right now, I think the biggest buzz is probably ordinals. We're actually publishing a article in a few minutes. Someone paid over $450,000 for one ordinal inscription. So that
what is
technology? That? Well, an ordinal is for those who don't know, an ordinal is similar to an NFT, which is basically, for example, digital art that is inscribed on the Bitcoin network. The smallest denomination of a Bitcoin is called a Satoshi, and an inscription goes on a Satoshi. And then you can put art, you can put text. Someone even put a version of the video game Doom on ordinal. So people are finding all kinds of interesting things to do with this thing, and that's what's really the popular thing right now.
All right, Jason. Well, we'll leave it at that, and we'll look for your article at Decrypt Media. That is Jason Nelson, reporter with Decrypt Media. He's also on X, formerly known as Twitter, and always expanding our vocabulary when it comes to cryptos. Ordinals, the word of the night. This is Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for our Legal Eagle Royal Oaks with the 790 KBC News Blitz. You're listening to 790 KBC, Los Angeles.
Stacking Benjamins with Joe and his good friend OG not only has great financial insight, it's laid back with humor too.
Joe talks with Stacking Deeds co-host Crystal Hammond.
I've always been a fan of nosy neighbors. I want nosy neighbors. They can tell you what's going on 10 times faster than you would know.
Again, what's she talking about, Doug?
Really?
We're repairing neighborhoods, but then we're into nosy neighbors, and I built a career off of that.
Find out more by searching the Stacking Benjamins podcast, wherever you listen.